What's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Roll Pod. We are recording this on Thursday morning. So just kind of prefacing that with the transfer portal, things can change at any moment. So some of the stuff we talk about may be outdated. Some of the stuff may not make sense by the time it's published, but that's the world we're living in. Alabama sitting at 12 incoming transfers. Crimson Tide have 21 transferring out. So numbers wise, there's a nine player difference, especially also when you look at the roster going to 105 from 85. So there's a lot more movement to be made over the next, month or so. The transfer portal window, as we've said, is January 2nd through January 16th. So 2 more days for guys to officially enter the portal. Now, as far as visits go, they can start back up again today, Thursday, January 15th, and pretty much run until I think it's February 2nd before the next dead period. So the next month, there's going to be plenty more people on campus, and we're going to continue to track that. We've got a transfer portal tracker. We've got a roster tracker. I want to start with this, Mike, Alex. Is this the most on-brand NCAA move to have a 2-day window and then have a 3-day dead period in the middle of it just because a coach's convention?
I was just going to ask you that. Why was there a dead period? But I guess that's the reason why.
Yes. Well, and even more on brand is in the middle of all of this, the NCAA, the basketball, legislative body deciding, we're going to do the portal after the championship game. What a novel concept. You would wait for the season to end before you do all of your free agency. Who would have thought you could do something like that?
Now, the complication that should be noted for football is the academic calendar.
Yes.
Because you can do it after the national championship game, which is in April, and guys just enroll in summer school, and then that's how you kind of do it. There's not a natural period in the middle of January after the national championship game, which next year I was looking, the Las Vegas national championship game next year is January 25th.
Yes.
It will be the latest national championship game in college football history. I was just updating my calendar, which we'll see. Alabama will be going into Las Vegas next year, but certainly if they do, that is where it will be, and it will be very late. And if you had a portal open at the end of January and early February, it just doesn't line up with the academic calendar. Now, of course, you can make the argument of should it? Does it really matter? Again,
tell me when's the last time a player was academically ineligible? Wait. It doesn't happen anymore. I think schools could overnight say there's a waiver for student athletes, just like there's a waiver for academic requirements, just like A, B, C, D on down the line. And it's really kind of shocking that no school has said, you know what, we don't care about that anymore. We're going to go ahead and change it. Because I don't know that anything legally is preventing them from doing that.
Right. So, again, that's the reason why there is a dead period. But they are changing the coaches' convention to February next year.
Don't worry, though. The AFCA is on it. The calendar, but we're going to get a 9 games, and you can have your red shirt, which is the height of stupidity, if you ask me. If you want 5 years to play 5 seasons, fine. 9, if more than half of the games you can play and still red shirt, that ain't a red shirt. That has nothing to do with development. Get out of here with that nonsense.
That's a little bit silly. You know who the new third vice president is of the AFCA? Third vice president.
Who?
The UT Martin head coach, Jason Simpson.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say maybe he could do new officers. Tampering, but
yeah. Well, Clark Lee is the new president of the AFCA, and Jason Simpson is the third vice president.
Third vice president.
Things you know.
There we go. There we go. And that's our Ty Simpson hit of Roll Pod today.
Well, there wasn't an end to it, so we have to keep it going.
Look, all I'll say on that is this. I respect his commitment to Alabama. I don't understand why the story didn't end the second he declared for the draft. the interest over how much money he was getting is somewhat interesting, but the fact that he was never actually considering going somewhere or truly wavering, like, where's the news in that?
It's kind of like recruiting now, where it's like a guy commits and then he shuts down his recruitment and then he signs and he enrolls. It's like there's all these steps along the process that we have to do now. I guess that's kind of how it was with Ty. I mean, Ty is like the greatest hypothetical transfer portal player. Like all of these hypotheticals that a Big Ten team was offering him like $4 million. He was going to transfer to Georgia. That was the whole thing with Schleybaugh. Yeah. And he just talked to Chris Lowe and he said, Tennessee, I grew up in the whole Nico thing. And then we have Miami and then we have like the greatest hypothetical transfer portal player in history is Ty Simpson. Look, I think he was a pretty good player for Alabama. I've put out some of the stats. There have been better quarterbacks at Alabama in recent history. So it's a very complicated legacy in that regard, but I think his legacy is about staying in Alabama. With that said, the story just kind of grows and grows and grows. The legend of Ty Simpson turning down offers just like gets bigger by the day. So
not to take anything away from Ty. It's not about Ty as much as it is about the quarterback market.
Right.
And what it will drive up the value of players for. And, at the end of the day, Mike's right. Like, Ty had really high highs, but he got really, I don't want to say low lows, but there were moments where he played really poorly. And in totality, he's not the greatest Alabama quarterback to ever put on the uniform, but he's got a great story. He's a good kid who made the right decision over and over and over again, and that should be applauded.
Right. And that, like, it just, there needs to be an end. It's like, can you just like put a period at the end of the
sentence? His hands are going to be in concrete. That's
close the book and just keep. Can we just end it? Like, the story has an end. Hopefully, it's
Austin Mack and Keelan Russell re-signed. That's the story now.
Right? Yes,
that is the story.
And I guess what is he, quarterback 2 in this draft? I mean, the quarterbacks are
Dante Moore's coming. It's a really thin quarterback draft. I mean, good for the Raiders getting Fernando Mendoza, but anybody else looking for a quarterback, I mean, you're taking a swing.
Yeah. And, I mean, somebody made the comment about the value of Ty and cue the NFL restructuring its rookie salary. My immediate, no, they're not going to do that. The NFL loves experienced players. The longer you stay in college, the happier they are as a group. No, they're completely fine with that. The college can go bonkers all they want. That is not the NFL's problem. They can put a game on Tuesday morning in the middle of, no man's land, and 10 million people are going to watch it. They don't care about college football.
Right. The players' union is led by veteran, experienced players, and sometimes their desires and needs are the ones that get prioritized. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the last time we recorded, Alabama was at 5 portal additions. Let's talk about it. I mean, people are still talking about it. Hollywood Smothers was included in that 5. Obviously, that's the NC State running back who committed to Alabama. He visited early in the portal window, committed to Alabama, visited Texas. Whether he told one staff he wasn't going to visit Texas or not, that's up in the air. And I heard some kind of, things there about, hey, I'm not talking to Texas, but clearly he still was, and you're dealing with a program with more money than Alabama. And if you don't know by now, Alabama is the middle of the road in terms of money in the SEC. I think I can count, you guys can fight me on this, but probably 5 or 6 programs in their conference alone that have more money than you're dealing with Texas Tech and Oregon, Miami, not even in their conference, Ohio State as well. So Alabama is in that second tier of money if you haven't figured that out already. But the Hollywood Smothers, I guess, fumble, if you will. Alex, I know you had a couple thoughts on it in your story, and other people have also, kind of ran with it. It's unfortunate what happened. I think just maybe this was a learning moment for the staff. Try to get kids signed as soon as you possibly can, especially when they're talking to high-profile programs with more money than you can offer. Not really posing a question there, just kind of teeing you up, Alex. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts.
Yeah, I think it should be I think the way you put that's right. It should be a learning moment about how you handle the optics of a guy visiting how you handle the optics of a guy committing and how far down the road you need to be before you say you're doing something, because, you know, things move quickly too. Like, we can talk about what Hollywood should or shouldn't have done. The fact that they had him committed and on the board for however many days that was, put them in a position where they were not going out and getting somebody else.
Right.
It put them behind the 8 ball. And I don't know if Alabama lacks the aggressiveness when it comes to negotiating and locking guys down. I don't know the answer to that. It seems to indicate that maybe that's a thing. You know, there are always going to be bad actors in this, and maybe that played a role. Maybe that was out of Alabama's hands. But I think there needs to be a little bit of an understanding on the front end of what that is and how to manage it. And if you are not 100% that this kid is actually going to sign with you, tell him no, do not say anything, because the optics of this matter. Just like I think in some ways, look, I said with Cam Coleman, if you can get Cam Coleman, you can get him. But you let that linger and suddenly you don't get him, and then it's a bad thing for all. Like, right. It's just one more, hey, we didn't get a guy we were after. And that, to me, as much as optics aren't the end game, it is a factor. And I think it's contributing to the negative feelings about this recruiting class, is that there was this expectation, we're going to get this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. The kid peaked from NC State, like, oh, we're going to bring him in, and all this, it doesn't materialize, and suddenly you're left going, what's happening here?
Yep. So for change of pace, I'm not overly bothered by this one. Again, I think running back was a need.
Yeah.
To some degree, it probably still is.
It definitely still is.
Ultimately, I don't know
whether they address it or not. It's still
right. It's this offense doesn't go through the running back. This offense, as it's designed, is going to go through the quarterback and the receivers. Mm-hmm. The offensive line is going to determine how good your running back is. Now, yes, there's degrees of running backs being good and shifty and explosive and all that, but the offensive line is kind of the engine. So I don't want to say it didn't matter if they got Smothers or didn't, but like, to me, the kind of the gap of having him versus not having him is not as big as other people might perceive it. And shit happens as far as like guys flipping, and that happens in college football until we have a system where there's a set of rules and a CBA and a union and all that, like an actual thing, you know, organized.
Yeah.
Then this is going to happen. And it's kind of part of how it is. Like, I don't know if I'm going to kill Alabama for it. I agree. The optics are probably the worst part of it, because it does contribute to the sense of you were supposed to get someone and you were listed as having that guy, and now you don't. But I don't know. Like, to me, I think it's going to be more about the offensive line. I think it's going to be more about the defensive line. And if Texas has a great year out of Hollywood Smothers, then good for them. But like, I think it's a huge deal to me.
No, it's not a huge deal. But to me, I just don't understand running it back with this group. And yes, offensive line is the priority. It's priority 1, 2, and 3, in my opinion. But like, it's the same thing we said going into last season. Do you look at this group and say they have the talent to be, you know, elite? I think Crowell will be. I don't think we know enough about everybody else to say that. And it was a historically bad running game a year ago. And to just stand pat, it's just a bad look. You know, could you be okay at running back if you're fine at if you work at all these other positions? Yeah, for what the offense is. But like, you're operating among the elite of college football. The elite teams in college football would have found a running back. Texas not only found one, they got 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part of it where it's just like, at what point, Alabama, do you look at it and say, I understand prioritizing high school recruiting and retention, but the lack of aggressiveness when it comes to the portal and seeing you have an obvious need at a position, and we could argue about whether it's the top need or the 4th need or the 5th need, it's still a need, and to not do anything with it, potentially, there's still time, it's going to be a question mark all season. And if they next season have another bad running game, It will be, why didn't you do anything about this?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, offensive line is more important, but that doesn't mean you should have stood pat with who this running back room is. And that's even saying there are things I like about some of these players in this group, and maybe I'll end up being proven wrong, but it's just, I don't think there's enough there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the larger idea of like, is there a disconnect between how fans perceive this past season versus how they perceive it inside the building? Because I think there's a certain amount of like, we made the playoffs, we won a playoff game. That is probably in their heads, and I think there's a level of justification to that. I mean, by all accounts, there was going to be an extension for Kalen DeBoer. Hasn't happened yet to our knowledge, but that was the track that we were down. But then at the same time, you have a huge blowout to Indiana. You stack that on top of what happened to Georgia and even going back to Florida State. And, it kind of paints it in a different light. And then you kind of lose a lot of players to the draft and to the portal. And where does that put you now? So is there a disconnect between kind of the confidence that you have in what you just did last year and building on that with young players versus losing a bunch of guys and you weren't good enough last year? I don't know. I think we'll see that if there is or is not staff changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's still an outstanding question as well. And I know there's theories and speculation that they'll do it after the portal closes, but there's a lot of shit that's already happened with the portal open. So
there will be the number of assistant coaching moves, I don't think is even halfway to what it will be. I think there will be a flurry of activity once the portal closes and that clears itself up, because you can just see what's been announced versus what we sort of know as a possibility at other places, and it's just not happening. And there's one reason for that, is they want to get through this portal window, lock down who is on the roster, and then move on from there. And that's not saying that's specific about Alabama. I'm saying that's about college football at large.
There's been some decent hirings. I mean, a lot of teams that didn't make the playoff already did all those assistant coaching changes more than a month ago, kind of going back to the first half of December. And, you have different situations with teams that have been in the playoffs. Obviously, Ole Miss has got their stuff. Oregon had lost both of their coordinators. You kind of go down the list. So I don't know if there's like this huge, bubbling thing under the surface that's going to happen, next week with a bunch of assistant coaches. And at the end of the day, I think Kalen DeBoer believes in his staff, believes in his guys. And again, I think there's probably a level of confidence in what they were able to do last year in making the playoffs and winning a playoff game. So I don't know if this is a situation where in his head he needs to just blow up his staff and start fresh. I don't see that happening personally.
Yeah, we'll dive into the biggest priorities remaining in a second and specific names to know. But Alex, you brought up high school recruiting and retention. Just on the retention side of things, and you guys may feel differently, I feel like Alabama's done a good job there. By all accounts, by the official announcements and what we're hearing based on other guys, you're talking about you're bringing Keelan back, you're bringing Austin Mack, Bray Hubbard, Yonze Pierre, Keon Sabb. By all accounts, most of the freshmen that were Latsier Brooks is official. Dijon Lee, I'm expecting. London Simmons, I'm expecting. Caleb Edwards, Michael Carroll re-signs. Is there? I think someone put it on our board. It was like they compared it to like their mother like rewrapping a gift for Christmas. I don't know if I see it that way. I think in this day and age, I think a retention and a guy that's a starter and impactful player could almost be viewed as another transfer portal addition. I could be wrong there, but I kind of am treating those as the same and maybe even more important and of wins again, I know they don't care about optics, but an optics standpoint, as big as transfer portal additions are, you're talking about a Bray Hubbard specifically, Yonze Pierre, especially at a position of need like that. I'm just kind of interested, should those be celebrated a little bit more and I know, again, the fan put it out, it's like rewrapping a Christmas gift, and you see it, you already know he's like,
it's not that the price of the Christmas gift went way the F up.
Right, exactly. But just, I don't know. I just wanted to kind of talk about that for a second. I feel like, again, I know there's a James Smith and Akwe Rousseau, Jordan Renaud, Isaiah Horton. They replaced it with Noah Rogers over at the receiver position. But like, To me, and I could be wrong, I feel like those should be celebrated maybe a little bit more.
I think so. I think it's just a whole shift in mindset that's happening, and fans coming to grips with what this new college football is. Because if you don't want to celebrate re-signing, the alternative is they're in the portal and they're not on your team anymore. So there's something to that. But ultimately, the question is, are you getting better from last season? I think that's the thing most on fans' minds, because they're so still upset about what happened against Indiana. Could I argue what happened against Oregon sort of, tempers that a little bit? Yeah, I sure as hell could. And maybe more importantly, the players who are leaving no matter what to the draft, and how are you backfilling those? Like, you've got to, those are things that are probably more pressing. Your point is right, but I think there's probably more of a, how the hell are we going to be better next year? That's going through people's minds. And when you look at this portal class, while there are players to like, I don't think there's a guy that says, oh my, we're significantly better there. Like, that's how we're going to be a better football team. That's not happening. And that's why I don't think you're seeing it celebrated quite as much.
As the former Buffalo Bills GM once told me, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Now the question is, if you're not getting worse, are you getting better? So if you're not losing Jan Zapier and Latsier Brooks and all those guys, does that mean you're getting better? I don't know. I think it just depends on how people view it. I think, as Alex said, there's decades and decades of fans being used to what your roster is from one year to the next stays the same. And the guys who graduate, your freshmen come in. There was no transfer portal. So I think a lot of people still operate under that assumption. I think the way you probably need to start thinking is you operate from zero every year. And you add your freshmen, you add your transfer portal players, and you add the players that you can re-sign from your roster last year. But I don't know if a lot of people mentally are there yet. So I think, kind of depending on where you are, paints the picture of how good of a feeling is brought about by a Latsier Brooks re-signing, et cetera. But just to go back to our previous conversation for a quick second, I was reading the Yay Alabama message board, which obviously the official NIL collective of Alabama. And then one of their employees, who I guess works in the building, Doug Killa, I believe his name is, basically said, a loss in the Rose Bowl, the CFP quarterfinals, to what will likely be the eventual national champions is a great year, in my opinion.
Great. I don't know if I would use great, but I don't think it's a failure in the sense that people are making it out to be that.
Yeah, the phrase I use is mostly successful. I think that's
from a person within the building. That is
right. I see
representation of how people in the building might feel. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that there might be a disconnect. This was literally a thread on their message board that said Kentucky is out recruiting us, and they were frustrated. And so the response to that was, a loss in the Rose Bowl quarterfinals to what will likely be the eventual national champions is a great year, in my opinion.
Here, the issue with saying Kentucky is out recruiting us is looking at one part of recruiting when there are three parts of recruiting, which again is high school recruiting, retention, transfer portal. Those are three separate parts. And you can't look at one and say the other two suck. And the underrated part of all of this, and to be fair, it's because it's a complete unknown, is how those guys you're retaining and bringing in will get better. Like London Simmons, there was a lot to like. What does year two look like? We don't know. It could be great. He could come in and be a complete difference maker on the defensive line. Latsier Brooks, look great. What will he be next year? What will Ryan Williams be next year? If Ryan Williams suddenly learns how to hold on to the football and recaptures what we saw out of a handful of games his freshman year, changes the look of a lot of things. Like, it's the unknown of what you bring back and how they get better. Like, there is that opportunity for those things to happen. There's an opportunity that either Austin Mack or Keelan Russell is better than Ty Simpson. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Definitely.
Especially when you talk about consistently throughout the course of a season. That's a possibility. But it's all unknown. It's all wish casting, if you want to put it that way. So, it's not as cut and dry as, look at where our portal class ranks right now. Oh my God, we suck. But there also is some truth to, look at where our transfer portal class is right now. Why aren't we getting better? Those are there's somewhere in the middle that's really hard for fans to be sometimes.
And there's a double standard sometimes too, because people will say like, oh, it doesn't matter. And like somebody within the building, Clinton Dix, going on Twitter talking about production from the transfer portal departures. But people in general, fans will say, look at who they've lost, James Smith, etc. Like, well, the defensive front wasn't very good anyway, or the offensive line wasn't very good anyway. So it doesn't matter that you lost those players. But at the same time, they'll celebrate a London Simmons coming back, or a Michael Carroll coming back, or whoever it is, even though those players were still part of that same team. Go and watch Indiana's last touchdown run in the Rose Bowl. Watch London Simmons. Got his ass kicked. Like,
guess what? They wanted looking for him to be back.
Right.
They might have had a difference of opinion in terms of A, value, and B, what position he would play. But just because he's gone and you think he wasn't good doesn't mean that the staff didn't want him back.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure how much that applies to everybody. And there is this collective / staff is operating under a very, what I would think is fiscally responsible, conservative, whatever you want to say it, approach. So they're drawing hard lines in the sand. And I don't think that's necessarily the wrong thing to do. But it's also, like you say, it's not cut and dried in the sense that, oh, that guy isn't worth what he was going to get in the open market. Therefore, we can afford to lose him. Just because he's worth 1.5 somewhere else doesn't mean he's not worth 5 to you. And that 5 to you is now 0. So you got to go out and replace that if we're just talking purely in terms of what a player is worth.
Right.
So have you done that? Is it a 1-for-1 James Smith? Maybe Devin Tompkins is that guy. Could be. Maybe you just lost Keon Keeley and Jordan Renaud. Neither one of those guys, I think you lose a tremendous amount of sleep on. But put together, and the fact that you don't know who second and third in that depth chart is going to be, you can't feel great about it. So, again, there's a middle ground there. It's just such a hard, thing to thread.
Right. Look how great in the moment. It was like, look how great it was for Alabama to get Parker Brailsford back. And then now it's like, well, you lost your top 5 offensive linemen. People are like, well, that offensive line sucked anyway. They needed a new one. Like LT Overton, it was so great to have him back, for the playoffs. And now it's like, well, their defensive line sucked anyway. We need a new defensive line anyway. Like, doesn't matter if those guys left. Like, it's such a double standard. Like, depending on the situation.
It's not that they need a new, they need better.
Right.
And you haven't answered the question, are you better?
No, there's no way right now you can confidently say the offensive line in particular is better.
No.
Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Is there
a possibility?
Right.
I don't know how much above 0 I would put it, but there is a possibility.
Right. There's a possibility. If Ty Haywood, who played 15 snaps last year for Michigan, turns into the player he thought he could be this year. If Caden Strayhorn, who played not many snaps last year before the Texas bowl game, turns into the player you think he can be. If Jackson Lloyd can step in and play well as a starter. If William Sanders can step in and play well as a starter. If Michael Carroll can be a full-time starter and play well. That's 5 big ifs.
Yeah.
And who knows? Like, you can't confidently say that right now. And same thing for the defensive line. Like, if Tompkins plays well, if Edric Hill and London Simmons and Caleb Smith and
what does Jeremiah Beeman look like?
Jeremiah Beeman, like, it's all projections. Like, it's possible. Nobody's counting these guys out, but right now we just can't say it on January 15th.
This will be the most unknown about an Alabama football team going in an offseason that I can remember ever.
Oh, yeah. Easily for me.
And granted, it's the way college sports.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But at the same time, last season, there was more known than unknown. Now, we didn't know how guys would progress, but there was a lot returning. And now you have not a lot returning. And the guys you have coming in are by and large, there's some guys in there who are proven, but by and large projections. So it's just unknown on top of unknown.
Mm-hmm. You should win the East Carolina game week 1. After that, nobody knows.
I saw you put on the board at Kentucky. Yeah.
Noted Kentucky hater, which I think I was joined by a lot of Big Blue Nation last night for the first half of their game against LSU, and then they pulled it out of their ass. But football-wise, I am a noted Kentucky hater, I guess. But
that Mark Stoops hater.
There is a lot of unknown about that game. How does Will Stein, that whole new team, you're going to Lexington, the fans are going to be there because it's the first game of the year, SEC-wise. Yep. It's not basketball season yet up there. There's a lot of unknowns about Alabama. You're playing on the road. That is a scary game to me. And I said that about Florida State this time last year, too. Remember, I was playing my little Florida State fight song on this here podcast, and look what happened. But I don't know, that Kentucky game in particular, it's so early. You just don't know anything about those teams. Week 2 in Lexington, September 10th. That's a strange, freaky, crazy little game to me.
Yeah. Again, we talked about it. This class, there's some unknowns, and it's not in the sense that, we don't think they can become, again, it's a lot of ifs. The offensive line has potential, I guess, to be better. The defense line. What do you think is the one known in this roster? And I'll say mine, and you probably would agree.
I think
secondary.
Yes, there's only one.
There's one. That's it, right?
Secondary. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, it's a damn good secondary, but you need to have linebackers. You need to have defensive line. You need to have offensive line. I get running backs maybe after that, and probably a negative. I don't like.
I feel better about wide receiver, and I Mike's point about having to add bodies is correct.
Right.
Yes,
but what they have coming back versus what they lost to me is not the end of the world. And even Isaiah Horton, who I think is a good football player, he's a lot like Ty. He had good moments, but from start to finish, you didn't know which game he was going to be a difference maker for you. And at the end of the day, this is Ryan Williams' contract year.
Mm-hmm.
If there was ever a time for him to put it all together, Lazier Brooks coming back after a fantastic year one. What has Derek Meadows become? Rico Scott re-signed, I think. We're waiting on the official. He said he's coming back. He come back for a reason, right? Cedarian Morgan. There are guys to like there. So I would put wide receiver in the category of I feel more comfortable about that group than I do a lot of others. But it's no doubt it's the secondary. I mean, they have strong numbers. They got positional versatility. That group should be good. I don't know if outside of Yanze they can get to the quarterback, but they should be able to stop the pass pretty well.
Yeah. And as I talked about the last show, it's a vicious cycle. So the positions where you're deepest are sometimes the positions where you need to think about losing people. And there is
or you wish you could do trades.
What?
That's where you wish you could do
They need to do trades. Just make it happen. Let it go.
If this was the NFL, Alabama would have a few guys in the trade block, I think, in the secondary. But it's just kind of a vicious cycle. It's the positions where you're deepest is where you need guys. And then once you add guys, you potentially lose guys. But I don't know. There's still a couple days open. I don't know if we're necessarily tracking anybody in particular that is still left to leave before the portal closes. But would it shock any of us if somebody did? I don't think so. There's already 21 guys in the portal. And sometimes deadlines spur action.
Yeah, the deadline is to get in, not to find a new team.
Right.
So a guy at 11:58 could tell the compliance office, put my name in right now.
Yep.
And theoretically, unless he just decides not to pick up his phone, he could do that. So,
right.
And then there is the Indiana, Miami. They're going to have 5 days after the national championship. You assume a couple of guys from there come open, and maybe that's somebody Alabama can go after. I don't know.
Is Alabama kind of looking for if everybody else spends their money early and they're trying to get some guys off of good teams? Is there strategy there? I was thinking about that in the NFL. Maybe that would be a thought, but in college football, there's no salary cap. So even the teams that have already added players, in theory,
Indiana is such an old football team that I don't know if there's a lot of guys who have that extra eligibility you're going after. And Miami's a team who's, if they cut a check, good luck winning that battle of pocketbooks.
And the programs that are high spending right now, to your point, Mike, can do it in a week as well. So that is an interesting mindset as well. We've talked about the offensive line. We talked about the defensive line. We talked about running back. Alex has a story up on the 4 biggest priorities remaining in the transfer portal. And I'm glad you wrote this one down. Linebacker, which was circled pretty high on our list for most. I don't know. I'm not in that building, so I don't know if it's fair to say confused or a little unknown. You get a Caleb Woodson who has a lot of experience, and I think he's going to be a good player. But at least on my end, I haven't really heard many other names. And I don't know if that's a reflection of what they think about the current group in the building, with Caden Jones, Duke Johnson, Abdul Sanders. But it's
QB Reese.
I don't know. QB Reese.
He's probably at the top of that list, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. and I think they're really high on Abdul Sanders. They're very high on these guys. You saw it obviously with Duke Johnson getting, I think he played in every game, at least on special teams, and got some opportunities obviously in garbage time. You got Luke Metz as well. I don't know. I'm a little, again, I'm not in the building, so again, I don't know if confused is the right word, but it seems a little odd that they're only have Woodson. And as far as I know, there's not many other names in the kind of to worth tracking.
Reese and Jones are juniors. So I know like they haven't played a whole lot on defense, but they're juniors. So like if it's not now, then it's their senior year that they're waiting to start. So I don't know if it's a situation where you bring someone in over them. I don't know. It's a tricky one because like you want to reward players who kind of bought their time. And they've waited 2 years. They played on special teams. They've kind of gotten into games late. And
the idea of look,
this is their time.
Now, could you think they're going to be good and therefore you want them to play next season? Yes. But the idea of rewarding players, that's
out the window.
The players don't reward the program anymore. So, I mean, I did. Congratulations. We've covered that. But like it's not a two-way street anymore, by and large. So
right now, I think your top three linebackers are Woodson, Reese, and Jones.
Yes.
And is that as good of a group as last year?
No.
I don't know. But people, again, kind of love to
dump on paper.
Last year's group.
Yeah. I mean, the last year's group closed strong because Deontay Lawson got healthy. They struggled in the beginning. Yeah. But what worries me is as much as they rotated guys, and they rotated everybody, those backup linebackers did not really see the field that much. It was Nikai, it was Deontay, it was Jefferson over and over and over and over and over again. So while they have bodies at that position, you just don't have proven commodities. And you don't have proven commodities on defensive line either. So it's your whole front seven. And that's why getting Woodson was a really good start. I, like Brett, am a little surprised it doesn't appear that they've gone out and at least got a guy with some experience who you say, maybe he's not a day one starter, but a guy you feel good about competing for a starting spot and maybe being like Nikai a year ago or Jefferson the year before that, like your third inside linebacker or a guy who's a tweener. It's a little surprising to me that they haven't done that, but maybe they feel good about those guys. Hell, maybe they feel really good about the positional versatility of a Justin Hill. Maybe they feel really good about, what Xavier Griffin can bring in immediately. There's just so much unknown at that position. And again, what you're trying to do in the portal is eliminate unknown ideally. And they haven't really done that in a big way.
And I would assume that some of their freshmen are getting paid pretty well.
Yeah.
And whether it's a Crowell or a Griffin or a Morgan or an Edmonds, like you kind of expect them to play right away if you're going to be paying them.
Yeah.
Like if you're just paying them to sit around and have a redshirt year as a freshman, like that's a waste of money. And that's something that, Alabama's even said. Courtney Morgan's talked about that. So you kind of have to factor those guys in. Now, I don't know how much opportunity there is in the secondary, and that's where they just continue to recruit so damn well every year. It's crazy. Like everything else, but like the secondary.
They should do multi-year backloaded contracts. That's what they should do.
So like you get Edmonds and Gibson and Jair Edwards, and like I just don't know where they're going to play now with Bray back and Sab back and Red Morgan back and Dijon Lee and Xavier Brown. Like I don't know where that's going to go, but Griffin, a Morgan, a Crowell, in particular, those three guys, even a Max Sutter, maybe a tight end. Like if you're paying them to come in as highly ranked freshmen, play them.
Jair Edwards is also probably getting up there in that conversation, just in terms of getting paid. Jair Edwards, he's a safety, so it's like,
where is he going to play?
That's the thing, and it's like we talked about retention there, and people were so happy about Bray, and then they're upset about Keon because you got the likes of an Ivan Taylor and a Zay Mincy and a Jair Edwards. So it's funny. Someone said that to me the other day, Mike. It's like, are you paying some of these guys to come in and just transfer out of your program in a year? Like, no, you want to play them. So it's a fine line. I do want to bring up
safeties.
Right.
New defense.
Right.
Our fans, board users would love that.
We're going to go
2-2-7 defense. Well, I don't know what the math works on that, but it's basically
what it aggressive prevent defense.
Is there? I think McVay's done 13 personnel. Maybe they could do 14 personnel with the tight end room.
I'm all for it. You know what we call that? The wing T, baby.
Yep, that's right. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks ad nauseum over the next 8 months because it's going to be a battle. But I just wanted to bring it up again because it was one of the talking points. A little bit of difference of opinions between Mike and Alex just last time we recorded about bringing back Austin Mack. How important was that? Obviously, he's back in the fold. It seems like they've worked pretty hard, pretty quick to get him in the room or stay in the room along with Keelan. And like Alex said at the beginning when we talked about Ty, the story is Keelan and Austin Mack being retained, and that's just an all-out battle. I guess I don't really have a question again. I'm kind of just rambling. But again, I think it's a big deal that you have both those in the room because, again, like I said, I don't know how comfortable you are. And Keelan is – I'll stay on a soapbox for him. Alex will, Mike will as well. But, like, I don't know how you would feel about a Keelan, Jet Small, Tatum Kava room going into a season with all those unknowns again, especially on the offensive line. So I think having both of those guys is a big win and should be celebrated. I know I may get hate for that, but I think it should be celebrated.
That's fair. To me, it's just if Austin Mack wins the job, every time there's an incompletion, every time he takes a sack, every time he breathes the wrong way, people are going to be wondering where's Keelan Russell. Yeah. Because now you have, again, the highest rated recruit in program history in our database who is on the bench for a second year under that scenario where Mack wins the starting job. That's tough. That's tough if you're paying a guy and recruiting him at that level to have him sit for 2 years. And I know the whole patience thing and all that. It's just, I don't know if that's how college football works anymore. So I think
quarterback's the one position where I think you have to overspend for your whole room. I mean, LSU, I didn't check. They may have brought in another quarterback already. I mean, it's just everybody here, there, and everywhere. And I think, yes, there is something too. If you have a pot of money, you are taking money out of that pot to play a guy who, in an ideal scenario, will not play, whether that's Austin Mack or Keelan Russell. In an ideal scenario, they're not running a 2-quarterback system. So there is the idea of dead money. But if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have shit. So you need both of those guys just for the insurance of it all, and see how it plays out. And again, what if one of them does? What if Keelan leaves, goes to SMU or wherever, and wins a Heisman Trophy? You look like an idiot because you put all your money into Austin Mack. So is that operating out of fear or whatever you want to call it? Maybe, but I think it's just the reality of where you need to be. Now, could you ask Austin and Keelan, can you take a little less money so we can go sign you a left tackle? Yeah. But will they do that? Probably not. I don't know.
And I don't blame them. I'm with the players. Go get your money, 100%. To close it out right here, just confirmed, and we'll have more. I'll have more on the transfer portal tracker as well. But Alabama expected to bring in former Oregon defensive lineman Terrence Green, 6'5", 330 pounds. So that's a big body out of Cypress, Texas. Played 25 total games over the last 3 seasons for the Ducks. Played 15 last year, or I guess a week ago before they lost. 15 total tackles, 1 TFL. You just need more bodies. So, again, Alabama's continuing to bring some guys in. There's a couple offensive linemen that are coming in between today and tomorrow as well. I like where Alabama stands for a couple of those guys. More importantly, and I don't think we're going to record before it, Indiana or Miami, why do I have zero reason to suggest that Indiana won't beat Miami by 20 points?
Indiana's a freight train right now. The one thing that gives me pause is that Miami's just a physical-ass football team.
Yeah.
And their offensive and defensive lines and their ability to run the football, if they can shorten the game, they can make it really interesting. But to me, Indiana's just playing at such a high level. I can't call them anything other than the favorite. But Miami's there for a reason. I wouldn't rule it out.
No, I wouldn't rule it out either. I think it could be a competitive game. Yeah. I think Indiana wins, but
what is the spread?
7.5
for a national title game.
That seems right. Like I feel like they kind of. I agree with that. But yeah, for national title, that's a lot of points. Mm-hmm. But we shall see.
Against the spread, because I wouldn't know what to say on that one.
Miami
told me that I look pale on this show. Compared to you, I said I need a tan.
You just need more light. That's all.
I got a little ring light. Some lighting.
Oh, I have natural light here. It's a nice sunny day. So
like a candle.
Right. I just
we'll get you a spray tan subscription.
Miami with not only their money, but coming off a national championship, I don't think they would have any issue recruiting in the portal and in high school. I don't know if
they got to find a quarterback.
Yeah, that's them and Tennessee are kind of the two you're circling there. Maybe Tennessee rolls with some of their high school guys, but we'll see. Loaded show per usual. Just hitting on everything transfer portal again. The window closes to enter on Friday at midnight or 11:59, but you can still take visits for the next month. We'll be continuing to track that. There's a junior day. There's Elijah Havens, #1 quarterback commitment coming up as well. I continue to feel good about the Crimson Tide there, and I understand no one cares about high school recruiting, especially when it's 2027 right now, but just wanted to throw that out. But again, loaded show between myself, Mike, and Alex. You can get every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Bama247, and stay locked into our transfer portal tracker, our roster tracker, and everybody have a good day.